on this computer. Okay, I'm so excited to have Sara, who is one of the co-founders from Vitruvi, chatting with us today. Hi, Sara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. Okay, so we have some questions that we want to ask you just to get a sneak peek behind the scenes at Vitruvi, what it's like to work there, what you look for in hiring. But before we start that, I wanted to share a fun fact about you.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
That not many people know and that I didn't know until I started working with Vitruvi, but you actually started Vitruvi by creating your own diffuser blends and essential oil blends. So I think that is so cool that that's how you started. And I'd love to know, like, what inspired you to do that? Like, how did you, like, who's sitting around and saying, like, I want to come up with some blends?
Yeah. I mean, it did. It started as a Tumblr account first,
Oh,
back in
wow.
the Tumblr days and Twitter days. And I was in school at the time and was suffering from like test anxiety. And I read that rosemary could help with that, or like this idea of scent association and the power of scent
Right.
to ground you, and how it can change your state and your mood and like the space that you're in. And so I started blending products and using them. And
Wow.
yeah.
That is so awesome. And so I I have a few favorites here. And also, can we just talk about this product design? Like, how beautiful is this branding? Absolutely gorgeous. But I am so crazy about Moonbeam.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
Is it? Thank you for saying that,
Mhm.
because nobody's talking about Moonbeam. Okay. And I need to get this on people's radar because this is, I have this going all the time. And if you are like an undercover hippie like me trying to make it in the corporate world, this is your key.
Yeah. I
This
had
is how
someone
you do
message
it.
me last night about Moonbeam too. Who was it? I'm just looking. Someone was like, it's my secret favorite. Yeah,
This is the one. So if you are
that's it.
getting into Vitruvi blends, I highly recommend Moonbeam.
When we were coming up with the name for that, I won't forget, we go on these tangents of like where we want to create the space that that person's in. I think this one had, okay, think about you've broken into a vegetable garden at midnight with your shoes on and you're slow dancing with someone you've just fallen in love with, and it's
Oh
a
my
full moon and
God.
it's beaming on you. And
Oh
so
my
it's
God.
like florals from the garden and herbs from like under your feet and like dewy,
Oh
and
my
so moonbeam to
goodness.
me is like slow dancing in a someone's
I
vegetable
love
garden.
that. And
Yeah.
yes to all of that. And just something about it that makes me feel like so at ease. Like I feel like, and I'm a dreamer, and a creative. And this makes me feel like I'm home. And so I
Okay.
really love this scent. You have to try it.
Awesome.
Okay, let's get into these questions. So, if you could give us a sentence or a little tidbit at, what is the secret sauce to landing a role at Vitruvi?
What is a secret sauce? I think for me personally, when I get to interview people, I think the biggest one is energy. I think people
Mm,
underestimate just energy, and eagerness is actually a really undervalued trait. So
yeah,
someone that's actually excited about the role, like you'd be surprised sometimes how people can, maybe they're trying to be too cool and blah, but
right.
you want enthusiasm and energy and in people that are going to work around you, especially when this is something that, I am and the team is so passionate about. And then
Yeah,
beyond that, it would be just exemplifying drive and grit. Someone that has worked jobs that maybe aren't amazing, or that shows that they can like really roll up their sleeves and has had drive and taken initiative and then grit to see things through when maybe they weren't going as planned
right.
or during
I
tough times.
love that. That's such good insight because the two things or themes you mentioned are things that people usually like to play down in interviews.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I
you're like,
know.
bring it.
I'm
No.
always trying to tease it out. Like, and
Right.
everyone wants to
Okay.
be really polished and like they've had this breezy, beautiful career from one amazing job to the next, and they're cool and they don't want to
Right.
seem too eager. And I'm like, no,
Yeah, you're like, give
I
me the
have no
goods.
chill. Yeah. Be
Okay,
excited. I
brilliant.
am.
That's really helpful. Okay, great. Thank you for that. And so following that, do you have any words of advice for somebody who's applying for a role at Vitruvi?
I think, this role or any role, I think doing your research on the company means a lot to me. Like that you've thought about things that you can reference, whether it's a campaign or a store that we rolled out in, or just that you've followed it, or we've had people that have referenced things that are very nuanced from the early days. And that always like makes me feel great that they were personally aligned with the brand and the company enough to follow along, or that they were just curious. And then also be up to date on your industry, right? Like your job is to exemplify or to personify where that industry is at, and we're hiring you because you're an expert in your field. And so,
Yes.
if I'm asking a question about that, I've done my research and I know what we need. And so to be able to give specific examples, whether it's the favorite brands you're following, product design, systems, like just do your research and be up to date
Right.
on what you're about.
Love that. That's super key.
Most people that are great at their jobs just do that without thinking. So
Right.
it's a great indicator. Yeah.
Yes. How have you gone above and beyond to really learn how it connects into the greater whole?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what is the number one quality or personality trait or EQ skill that you look for in a person that's coming into Vitruvi?
That's a very good question. Humility. Yeah, I think authenticity and humility. And you can really tell when someone likes working as part of a team, and that it's about one person, because the way that we operate at Vitruvi, it is a team. If you're in our all hands, if we just did a review, all hands like review of a campaign that was a success, and every person is shouting out someone else that contributed.
Wow.
And so to have the humility to be able to, like showcase someone else's work on the team, or if you were influential in supporting them. So that to me is really a key component of what we do and how we do it here.
Because you and then that, right? Like not everybody has that built in within them. So that's something to really reflect on, I think, for people.
I think that if you're able, when you're in an interview, you're trying to put your best foot forward, and it's easy to say me, I. But when we use we language and team language around past roles or future roles, that to me is like shows humility and like a team mindset.
And they're going to fit into the culture at Vitruvi. I love that. That's really good insight as to what you're listening for. Okay, so finally, last question. In your opinion, what kind of person is really going to thrive in a role that you're bringing them in to do at Vitruvi? What makes somebody thrive in this environment?
What makes someone thrive is creating things, someone that likes creating things. We are a company of creation, of design. We are design centric in what we do. And I think someone that likes creating things out of nothing, that's a very specific skill set.
Yes.
And that can be anything, like a product, a system, relationships, workflows, like just someone that's interested and invested in the making of things. We are a company of creators. And so someone that likes to roll their sleeves up and do things. It's not around reorganizing systems or maintaining the status quo. It's someone that gets jazzed by possibility.
Oh, so good. So exciting. And to finish up, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. So we can get more of an insight as to you as a leader. I'd love to know, from a personal standpoint, when you think about 2022 and yourself, like, is there a word that comes to mind that you're focusing on, or do you have a theme that you're wanting to, call in for 2022? I'd love to hear what that is.
I love to think of themes, and for years, specific years, 2022's theme is do bigger. So it's around like pushing constraints, thinking bigger, taking design constraints out, taking constraints out, and thinking around what could be. And so really being conscious of what we've learned to live with and things that we can change. So
love that. So good. Thank you so much for your time. This is so helpful.
Appreciate it.